Prince William speaking out for the first time since that bombshell interview with his brother Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Watch.
Sir, have you spoken to your brother since the interview?
No, I haven't spoken to him yet, but I will do.
And can you just let me know, is the royal family a racist family, sir?
No, we're very much not a racist family.
Royal family is not a racist family. Joining us now to discuss is Olly Barratt, London correspondent. Olly, good to see you. What is the sentiment now in Britain nearly 5 days after that interview has aired?
Well, people have very much been waiting to hear on camera from a member of the royal family. And 4 days after the interview first went out in the United States, we now have those comments from Prince William. Extraordinary that a member of the British royal family would have to go on camera to say that their family was not racist. Interesting also that he did decide to respond to the question that was thrown at him by a journalist. You could tell that as he walked past the reporter, he was in two minds, it appeared, about whether to respond at all. He decided that he should. We saw Prince Charles 2 days ago, also at a public engagement in London. He was also asked about the interview with Oprah Winfrey, and he declined to respond. So very interesting indeed. Also interesting to hear Prince William say that he hadn't yet spoken to his brother, despite how explosive the allegations were that were made in that interview with Oprah Winfrey. So 4 days has gone by and no telephone conversation. He says there will be one, but perhaps we shouldn't be too surprised about the fact that there hasn't been one yet, since we understand that they haven't really been speaking directly for months. In terms of sentiment, there still is a sense here in the UK that perhaps there's more sympathy here with the senior royals and less with Harry and Meghan than there is in the United States. But as we see and hear more of the royal family in the coming days and weeks, that may change in either direction. They are going to be asked about this at every engagement they carry out.
Olly, is that typical for Prince William to answer questions from reporters like that? Or do you think perhaps he answered because the question was directed, pointed right at his family, something very sensitive to him?
Exactly, right at his family, something very sensitive, but also sensitive issues. And if he hadn't responded, then the royal family leaves itself open to suggestions and claims that it's not dealing with these very serious issues indeed. We, of course, had that statement from Buckingham Palace earlier in the week, that written statement on behalf of the Queen. That said that the issues around race particularly would be taken seriously, but only would be addressed privately. And that is why, as I say, these royal members are going to be asked about this at every engagement for the foreseeable future, and they will know that, and they will have to decide on each occasion whether to respond, whether to engage or not.
In response to the allegations about racial comments made within the family, do we still not know potentially who said what?
We don't know who said what. All we have is that hint in the statement from Buckingham Palace that recollections may vary. That is very much being interpreted here in the UK as the royal family quietly pushing back and saying whoever it was that was involved in those conversations doesn't necessarily interpret them in the way that Harry and Meghan set out in that interview with Oprah Winfrey. But we still don't have an identity, and that means that the speculation will only continue.
All right, Olly Barratt, live for us in London. Olly, thank you very much.
Let's bring in our panel now to react. Betsy McCaughey, former Lieutenant Governor of New York, David Grasso, host of Follow the Prophet podcast, and Julio Rivera, editorial director for Reactionary Times. Now, as we know, some Americans, they don't care at all about the royal family or the royal fallout from the sit-down interview with Oprah. But Julio, we'll go to you. What do you sort of make of how this story has unfolded, and also the accusations the family is now being forced to respond to?
I think this is something that Americans should not have to listen to or care about. Why do we care about these things? I think it's ridiculous. I think Meghan Markle is the poster girl for the self-victimization generation that we're in the middle of living in right now. I mean, this is somebody that was given an opportunity to be a working royal. She was basically, from their perspective, which I don't believe in the importance of a monarchy, the king. I think this is all nonsense. But this is basically a commoner that they allowed into their circle They gave her a position where she was living spectacularly, and all she's doing now is trying to exploit that for her own personal gain, I feel. Listen, if you're not going to name names, don't sit there and allude to these, these wild claims of racist statements that would be really, would rock England, rock the world kind of in a sense if these people we find out are truly racist. Why not go ahead and name names? Or if you're not going to go ahead and do that, don't go ahead and take a couple $1 million interview here, a couple $1 million interview there, and go ahead and just drop these little nuggets without giving any substantive details of this supposed racism.
Betsy, if we can take the video of the interview, let's just look at the picture of the people that are on the screen and the net worth behind all three people complaining about being victims. I'm not saying Oprah is. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is alleged by Harry and Meghan. Them combined, they're worth more than $50 million. Then you have Oprah Winfrey. These are some of the richest people in the entire world, and we're watching them on television telling us about their woes. And by the way, as Julio was pointing out, not specifically, just in a broad sense, talking about it. Betsy, your thoughts?
Well, I believe with Piers Morgan that not one word of it was credible. I've had my own run-ins with Piers, but in this case, he is absolutely right. And playing the race card was a very low blow, a very dirty trick. That's exactly what it was. It's almost impossible for someone or a family to deny they're racist once it's accused. It's like, when did you stop beating your wife? And the fact is that the royal family appears to have been very welcoming to Meghan Markle before the wedding, at the wedding where her mother attended and was treated very graciously. And the Queen herself lent Meghan Markle her closest personal aid to help welcome her into the royal family. So to me, this is lacking in credibility, and it just shows what a dirty trickster Meghan Markle really is.
Well, you mentioned Piers Morgan, who's a very outspoken opinion host. He was also hosting Good Morning Britain, and he has since left the program. Here's how he responded to complaints that he faced about his comments on Meghan Markle. Watch.
Freedom of speech. I believe in the right to be allowed to have an opinion. If people want to believe Meghan Markle, that's entirely their right. I don't believe almost anything that comes out of her mouth.
And that's Piers' opinion, and perhaps we could see more of him maybe on a different program someday. Who knows what his plan is. But David, again, in that interview, there were allegations of racist comments being made, also concerns about Meghan Markle's own mental health. What do you think sort of the fallout could be from this interview as we go long term? Do you think there could be some long term potential investigations or just continued fallout?
Okay, so I'm going to indirectly answer your question. I'm going to pull the Piers Morgan thread. It's an open secret he wants to be prime minister. And despite the fact that Piers Morgan fought with Trump, he reminds me a lot of Donald Trump. And he's seizing the spotlight and making himself a martyr for the cause. Regarding Meghan Markle versus the royal family, I have a tendency to believe there's a little bit of truth on both sides. I'm not going to sit here and defend either of them. This is obviously a food fight that is above my pay grade. But as it relates to Piers Morgan, we know what Piers wants. He wants to be Boris Johnson. And he is Trumpian in the way he does things. He's smart with PR. He knows this is his moment. And he's, invoking cancel culture and invoking censorship. But really, Piers Morgan wants the spotlight. He wants to rule Britain. And he might just get the chance to do that.
What an interesting take. All right, out of time, I believe. I want to say thank you to our panelists, Betsy, David, and Julio. Great conversation, all three of you.
Thanks. All right, now let's take a look at some other stories making headlines right now. Former President Donald Trump says he hopes everyone remembers his role in the development of COVID vaccines once they receive them. In a statement released from his Save America PAC, the former president praised his own work on Operation Warp Speed, which helped accelerate the vaccine development. Without his involvement, Trump claims that development of a successful vaccine could have taken 5 years or even longer. Also nursing home visits will finally be allowed under new CDC guidelines. Now, people are allowed to visit residents regardless of whether they or the residents have been vaccinated. The Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services explained this easing of restrictions was made to alleviate the psychological and emotional toll of isolation from family members. It It's the first revision to federal nursing home guidance since September. And this, coronavirus variants are causing a serious surge in cases in Brazil, where deaths exceed 2,000 a day. Doctors describe this as the worst moment of the pandemic in Brazil, as intensive care units hit 80 and even 90% capacity across the country. The surge has been largely attributed to the P1 variant of the virus, which is more transmissible than the original strain. Global experts are calling for a strict lockdown plan to get the situation under control there. Those are some stories we're following for you right now. Of course, for breaking news, you can always head to Newsmax.com.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.